Evening, the San Dimas City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 22nd will come to order. Please rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we have the distinctive pleasure of having Assembly Member Chris Holden from the 41st Assembly District. Mr. Holden, would you like to? We got the microphone as tall as we possibly can get it.
I was just telling my Deputy District Director, Matt Lyons, I said, you know, this is a curse of being 6'8". You know, all of the podiums that I usually am at are a lot lower, but it's always a pleasure to be here, Bader, and just thank you to the City Council and to you for giving me an opportunity to be here to bring an update. It's always nice at the end of session to come in to the local communities that I represent and give you an overview of some of the things that we've been able to accomplish and that we were challenged with along the way. This being my last presentation as your Assembly member, I want to thank you in advance for the great leadership that you all have shown and the kindness and the generosity of welcoming me to your community so often and being able to work together collaboratively on a number of things. So I thank you for that opportunity. Let me just start by saying that serving in the California State Assembly has been one of the most exhilarating, impactful, and innovative endeavors I could have imagined. Authoring laws that protect the most vulnerable and disenfranchised has always been my North Star. When I entered the Assembly in 2012 as a member of the new legislative class with term limits of 12 years, I remember thinking this was our opportunity to be good stewards and envision the best for California because instilling hope and promise for an inclusive society is why I serve. I had sights set on protecting the natural environment, investing in deferred infrastructure improvements for roads, bridges, and highways. I made goals of creating policies that work to improve our water delivery systems and modernizing the electric grid to meet the challenges of a changing climate reliably and efficiently. Immediately after being elected, I was informed that the city of San Dimas was at risk of losing ownership of the historic Walker House because of a technicality in state law. The Walker House is such a local treasure. We worked together with the city staff and advocated on behalf of the city and your interests to convene and convince the California Department of Finance to exempt this property from the law and return full ownership and control back to the city of San Dimas. By working together, we were successful in our efforts. Years later, in 2022, the community came together using the Walker House as the venue to recognize Marilyn Sparks as our Woman of Distinction from the city of San Dimas. We began the year with approximately $45 billion general fund shortfall. The legislature and the governor completed $17 billion in early action, and the 2024-25 state budget plan reflected negotiations between the governor and the legislative leaders to close the remaining $28 billion projected budget shortfall. The plan balances the state budget for both 2024 through 25 and 25 through 26 under the administration's current revenue and spending projections and accomplishes this while using only about half of the rainy day fund, leaving about $11 billion in reserve in case it's needed to draw upon for any shortcomings in 2025-26. Despite this year's budget deficit, my colleagues and I were successful in obtaining statewide funding prior to the pandemic during our state surplus years. $400 million for developmental disability services providers who help nearly 330,000 Californians living with developmental disabilities, plus $200 million in additional funds from the state of California, and an additional match of $200 million for the federal funds so the total of $800 million was made available for developmental disability communities. $16.3 million to finish and maintain the California Early Earthquake Warning System, which will help reduce damage, costs, and casualties in the event of an earthquake. This includes a one-time $8.8 million appropriation and ongoing $3.6 million for creating and maintaining the Shake Alert Early Earthquake Warning System. $3 million to expand speech-language pathologist training in the California State University system. The funding will address the shortage of qualified teachers to help students in speech-related developmental and intellectual disabilities. Investment in transportation solutions has always been a priority of mine since my time serving on the Pasadena City Council. I stepped onto the Assembly floor committed to completing the goal line through San Gabriel Valley to Montclair and someday to the Ontario Airport. As chair of the Select Committee on Regional Transportation Solutions, I've held numerous meetings with stakeholders and increased awareness and encouraged collaboration. Meetings have been held in Pasadena to Lancaster, and my final meeting was in Montclair this past Friday, where we received an update from the Gold Line Authority CEO about Habib Balian. I'm proud to report that in this year's budget, $500 million was allocated for the 3.2-mile extension from Pomona to Claremont and Montclair. Commuters, who drive the 210, the 10, and the 60 freeway in the morning for jobs in the LA County area will have a convenient, quicker mass transit commute. Since being elected to the Assembly in 2012, I've served under two administrations, Governor Jerry Brown and current Governor Gavin Newsom. Both have signed over 100 of my bills into law. Many of these legislative victories stem from conversations and collaboration from members of the community. Through community engagement, our office was able to take steps towards finding solutions and delivering those solutions that work. In the area of education, I have taken steps to remove some barriers to dual enrollment and the dual enrollment access by successfully enacting the College and Career Pathways Act of 2016. The data remains undisputable. Dual enrollment increases the number of college graduates, reduces the time and money spent for college, and helps close the achievement gap. This act created a paradigm shift where early college access and opportunities became accessible to every student, not only the 5% scholastically advanced students. Today, all 114 community colleges offer some form of dual enrollment, and we have many examples of graduating high school seniors who finish high school with their high school diploma and their AA degree. As a matter of fact, at John Muir High School this year, we had a young person finish with 2 AAs. So it's an exciting prospect to finish high school and then start college as a first-year junior. I authored legislation that dealt with lead testing to ensure that our children have safe drinking water at schools. I worked with LA County to improve water quality and reduce stormwater capture and urban runoff pollution. I collaborated with the governor and the Senate to enact the Wildfire Mitigation Fund that ensures fire victims and businesses do not incur certain costs and expenses arising from wildfires. In closing, serving this district and all the wonderful communities in the 41st District, of which I went to school, public school, Pasadena High School, and San Diego State, and coming back and having the opportunity to serve in this elected position and to try to be as responsive as I could, engage with the community, and believe me, one of the most exciting times and events within the 41st in terms of community activist programs that you have was the Western Days. I still have my cowboy hat, so we appreciated those times, and I appreciate the opportunity to represent you in Sacramento. Not exactly sure at this point what next looks like, but we will be working on that, staying involved in public policy, and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could, Mayor, and the council, I'd like to present a resolution on behalf of the State Assembly for all of what this community represents, the unique charm and activities and vibrant engagement of your citizens and your leadership as leaders of this community. So thank you for all that you do. And if I could, I'd like to present this to you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Everybody, yeah.
One, two, and three. 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, one more. I'll make it quick. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to say is that although we don't have it we don't have it today, but I'm sure that there are many people, not only in our audience, but out there in TV land and throughout our community, who want to see the rodeo come back. And one of the things that today, when I was speaking to somebody else about you coming tonight, they made the comment about how you were so invested in our rodeo, and we want to thank you. And you're right, you don't have your cowboy hat on, but you're tall enough to make it work. But thank you very much, sir, and thank you. Take care. Today, we also have recognition of Red Ribbon Week from October 23rd through the 31st, 2024, with our Southland Young Marines. We'd like to read a proclamation, Madam Clerk.
Red Ribbon Week. Whereas communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them. And whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Southland Young Marines of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities, and whereas the red ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Quique Camarena, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty, and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. And whereas October 23rd to the 31st has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for a drug-free environment. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Emmett G. Badar, Mayor Pro Tem Eric Nakano, Council members Rachel Bertakos, Ryan A. Viana, and Eric Weber, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st, 2024, as Red Ribbon Week. During this event, urge all citizens to join with appropriate celebrations and observations. In witness thereof, I, Mayor Emmett G. Badar, have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of San Dimas to be affixed this 22nd day of October.
Thank you. Could I get the young Marines to come on up to the front? And anyone wishing to speak, feel free to speak at the podium. Have everybody come on up. And anyone wishing to speak, let them speak. There's somebody got to say something.
I'd like to take this time to thank you for issuing the proclamation. I think that it means a lot to the city and that we have some drug demand reduction, and I think that it's really needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Have they got any young sailors out there? Oh, somewhere out there. I ended up with it. We'll move into oral communications. Members of the audience and all are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual item except for public hearings. Comments of public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on this posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to staff or set for a discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Are there any speaker cards?
Mayor, there was one speaker card turned in by Johnny Parker with announcements.
Sir?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Parker. I'm excited to share with you an important upcoming event, the Disaster Ready Community Fair. This dynamic event is designed to educate our community members on how to be prepared for earthquakes, wildfires, other potential disasters before they occur. The fair is a collaborative effort with area interfaith councils, fire and police departments, the Red Cross, SoCal Utilities, San Dimas Mountain Rescue, San Dimas CERT, and many others, bringing together community members from Claremont, Laverne, and San Dimas. We have a solid lineup of demonstrations and speakers who will provide invaluable insights into disaster preparedness. The fair will be held at Bonita High School, located at 3102 D Street in Laverne, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We've placed flyers on the table at the entrance and kindly ask that you help us spread the word by posting the event details on your website and calendar. We deeply appreciate the support from San Dimas residents and hope to see many of you at the event. Your participation is crucial to making our community safer and more resilient. Thank you for your time and support. Together, we can build a disaster-ready community.
Thank you. That was November 9th.
November 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the only speaker card turned in, Mayor.
Anyone wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted with one motion unless a member of the city council requests separate discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further? I'll entertain a motion. I've got the motion. I forgot about that. I'm so used to one of you guys having something you want to pull. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. Introduce ordinance 1317, adding a new chapter 8.15 to the San Dimas Municipal Code to establish standards and for the management and retrieval of shopping carts in the city. Senior Analyst Anissa Rivas will give this presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Anissa.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. For your consideration, I am here to introduce a new proposed shopping cart management and retrieval ordinance. This ordinance is designed to address a growing concern of abandoned shopping carts and to offer a practical solution that involves both businesses and the city. So tonight's presentation is going to include the purpose of proposing this ordinance today, some data to showcase and give some insight on how this issue is affecting our city currently, the approach in drafting the language, and it will go over what will be required of businesses who fit within the parameters of this ordinance, to kind of go over what would be required of them. I'll present some alternatives if the council chooses not to go forward with this ordinance this evening, and then I'll close with a recommendation. The purpose of this ordinance is straightforward. It aims to address the issues abandoned shopping carts cause in our city. To provide some context, city staff and the public have continued to observe an ongoing issue with abandoned shopping carts. Despite existing state laws, the issue has persisted, and the goal of this ordinance is to reduce the number of abandoned carts while saving costs for our business community and for the city. So currently our approach to this issue is mainly reactive. When carts are found abandoned, city staff, along with our contractor, retrieve and store them at our maintenance yard and attempt to return them to the proper retailers. We found that the number of abandoned carts is estimated to grow this year. So the chart in front of you showcases two data points. So the left blue bar for 2023 shows a total number of 212. That is the total number of my San Dimas requests to retrieve abandoned shopping carts for the year 2023. On the right, you will see for 2024, as of January 1 of this year to yesterday, October 21st, we have 2,009 requests for abandoned shopping cart retrievals. And typically we see an uptick based on the 2023 data for Thanksgiving and holiday season. So we do project this number to be higher than last year. Second, you'll see a red and a green line. So in talking with our staff and with Urban Graffiti, we found that there might be a discrepancy in the data in the My San Dimas app, just because if code enforcement is going out, they might not put that ticket into the My San Dimas app, even though they're usually really good about it. And also, just as they go about their day, they might be collecting carts that is missing in the My San Dimas app. So they are seeing an average of 1 dozen to 2 dozen carts within their yard a week. So that red line would show a maximum of 2 dozen carts throughout the year, and the green line, 1 dozen. So all of this is to say, 365 days a year, we're retrieving and seeing carts in our city. And our staff does a really great job of usually same day getting those carts out of public sight. So when drafting the language, we had 4 key principles to consider. First was prevention. We wanted to focus on preventing carts from leaving businesses' premises. Accountability for businesses and users. Shared responsibility to encourage cooperation between businesses and the city. And last, and probably one of the most critical, was to minimize the impact for our business community while promoting responsible cart management. We really strove to draft an ordinance that would not impact small businesses in our city. So one of the main components of this ordinance is the requirement for retailers with 10 or more carts to submit a shopping cart retrieval plan. In drafting this ordinance, we aim to have an easy and straightforward process for submitting these retrieval plans. On attachment 2 of the report, you will see a draft of a shopping cart retrieval plan form. This is what would be required of businesses to submit. It should take them less than 5 minutes to fill out. It's fill in the blank, multiple choice, so they don't have to come forward with drafting their own new plan. In addition, there's no fee for submitting that form or for modifying a shopping cart retrieval plan in the future, and businesses would have 90 days to submit their plan upon effective date of this ordinance, so they'll have plenty of time to get up to date. Based on our business licensing data, we estimate 14 retailers in the city would be affected by this ordinance, as they would have 10 or more shopping carts. I also want to note that these retailers, all of them are chain stores. So shopping cart ordinances, it's not unique to San Dimas. There are hundreds of cities throughout California and around the nation that have these in place. So what we anticipate is a lot of our retailers might already be in compliance, and if they're not, it's going to be pretty easy for them to implement and to integrate for us here in the city. So some alternatives for the council to consider, should you not want to move forward with this ordinance today. First would be to maintain our current approach, which is relying on state law. You could direct staff to increase our cart retrieval efforts. We could do some more surveying around the city, but just note that might take time out for staff to do other things throughout the day. If there's a provision you wish to change, you could adopt a modified version of this ordinance. And then lastly, we could invest on an educational campaign for retailers, discussing best practices on how to prevent carts from leaving the premises and how to make their carts more easily identifiable. So in conclusion, this ordinance is a proactive measure to reduce the negative impacts of abandoned shopping carts in our community. It balances business flexibility with public safety and welfare in mind. I'm also pleased to note that there is no direct fiscal impact for implementation, and the ongoing cost to maintain this ordinance would be minimal. Therefore, I recommend that the City Council introduce Ordinance 1317 for first reading and waive full reading of the ordinance. Thank you so much, and I'm available for any questions.
Questions?
One quick question on the education piece. Obviously, we're going to have some sort of education for the retailers that this would affect, but I'm not necessarily looking for like the how to reduce the number of shopping carts leaving your facility. I'm sure they want to keep them there just as much as we would love for them to keep them there as well. But I'm looking more the education piece about the ordinance change. Yes. So is that something we've just considered mailers to be sufficient, or are we going to go out and do any like boots on the ground education on that?
Correct. So we do plan to send a few mailers out to the business community, but in addition, we know the retailers that would fall within this ordinance. So if we are seeing, within 30 days of the ordinance coming to implementation period, and we're not seeing those retailers come in, we do direct outreach to say, hey, if you didn't know, there's this ordinance coming into place. Thankfully, we don't anticipate a large number of businesses being affected, so we can do that direct outreach.
Great, thank you.
How many businesses?
14.
14 total. And as far as enforcement goes, I mean, what's the enforcement going to look like?
Okay, good question. So for the business community, what the enforcement would look like is if an abandoned cart is found and retrieved by the city and impounded over at our maintenance yard, the business community would have 3 city business days to retrieve that cart. If they retrieve that cart within that time frame, there's no fine or citation for that. If they fail to collect after 3 days, we would charge them a fee for the cost of impounding that cart.
I'm assuming the sheriff's department was consulted when you guys were drafting this, or is this only from the perspective of the businesses?
So the Chamber of Commerce was provided input on this, as well as city staff. As far as the Sheriff's Department, no, I don't believe it was sent over them for their direct review on the language, but they were made aware of this item coming forward.
And I'm assuming, the reason I'm asking that is, you know, my experience in other communities as it relates to this, I mean, it seems as though that this is going to tighten up the accountability to the businesses to have to retrieve their carts, but they're not the ones necessarily taking their carts off-site, right? So the Business and Professions Code makes it a misdemeanor to take the shopping carts. So I'm concerned because I've seen it in another community where I worked, where this was a real problem to the point that the cost of these shopping carts are not cheap. And so that city enacted an ordinance kind of similar to what we're doing here. And the retailer's response to that was to purchase shopping carts that had self-locking wheels to prevent the theft of the carts. But then these people who would take these carts figured out how to defeat the locking mechanisms or just lift the carts up and continue to roll, or put a skateboard underneath it. So, you know, this is a good thing to address the issue, I guess, from the city's side of this to get rid of these carts back to their rightful owners. But I would like to see, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department will do proactive enforcement on this and not chalk it up to a quality of life issue, because this is an actual problem. I mean, it costs real money, and now we're going to hold local businesses that accountable who provide a tax base of revenue to the city. And so I don't want to see this taken negatively, where we're cracking down on them when we're also not equally cracking down on the actual problem, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. I think those are all, very valid points. I'm not sure if this addresses your question directly, but I do want to state one of the key issues of this ordinance, and something that it really attempts to address, is our staff is finding that we have a lot of unidentified carts that we are holding in our yard, and we're holding them for an excess amount of days, and we're trying to get them back to our business community, but they're not identified. So the hope is, more so with this, is to actually get those carts back to the business community faster, instead of just keeping them, holding them, trying to call them. So I know it doesn't directly answer, but I do want you to know that this ordinance addresses to save businesses some money on that front.
Why could we not implement, and it might sound cuckoo, but why couldn't we implement like a shopping cart registration program for these businesses, then we serialize them for them so we can help get them back to them?
That's definitely possible. It can be mandated within the ordinance that, and I've seen this in other examples, that businesses would have an identification number as a part of their shopping cart identification. And it's possible. I've seen it in other examples. I think the reason for us to not include it this time around was to try to not create another hurdle for them to comply. But, it's up to this council if they wish to include a provision like that.
I guess my only comment back on that is, this is already going to be daunting to a business when they see it coming. But I don't know that we're really solving the entire problem if you still have carts that are unidentified. And it seems to me that this ordinance would just perpetuate, it's not going to address that problem you're talking about. And rather than go through another public hearing, later on down the road, I don't know why we wouldn't just, I don't know, I'm only one person out of 5 here, but I don't know why we wouldn't just include that now. And I imagine there might be a little bit of cost involved in that to be able to facilitate it. But if it helps reunify the carts with their owner, it's no different than the etch and catch events that we've done for catalytic converters from my perspective. We're just actually helping our businesses get their property back. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, City Council, can I make a comment on your idea? The one thing that would do is create a program within the city to register the etch and sketch cards. Part of the retrieval program, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anissa, is they have to identify a plan which would identify their cards that they have to be able to retrieve them. So part of identifying or having this ordinance is they have to come up with some plan, and it's a fillable form that you have, but part of that would be marking down what carts are their own carts to be able to go and retrieve them. So I don't know if registering them or having a etch and sketch on our end, if they're going to be marking their carts already as part of the retrieval program that they're developing, we might be duplicating efforts is what I'm.
I mean, I don't, in a very pragmatic sense, I don't think any retailer is going to buy a shopping cart and serialize it. That's not the way they're sold. I mean, to require, like in my mind, I agree with you that perhaps a registration program makes sense on our end to administer, and they should be free to figure that out. But I would almost think in an ordinance like this, we could specify that you will mark those carts, on the right support arm with a serialized number of your choosing and register that with the city. That to me gives them enough flexibility to be able to use whatever mnemonics or numbers they think make sense to their company. But at least to us, they were required to register it with you, so we know when we get, whatever it is, that it is what it is, Smart and Final or, Harbor Freight or whoever,
So if I could,
That would be at their expense.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. I believe I read, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, that, because this ordinance reads more like a partnership, in my opinion. The business is supposed to label their carts with their company, a
Correct.
phone number, an email, whatever it is, so we can identify. I do like the fact that the way that it's presented doesn't have a fiscal impact. And I like that it reads as a partnership. I think it sounded very reasonable. The plan, the expectations, the implementations, everything sounded really, really reasonable. I think 3 days to go and retrieve your store's cart is a good plan. I kept the little guys in my head as I read this. We have some little mom and pop shops, and I didn't want it to affect them negatively. And I don't see it doing that. And I do see that probably the chains are probably in compliance or they're used to this and they'll step up. So I do appreciate the report, and I think it's a good first step. If we need to do something further, I would be open to talking about it more. But I like no fiscal impact, the reasonableness of it, and the partnership.
appreciate that. And thank you. I do want to just clarify that, yes, the ordinance does specify that it is a requirement for these retailers who have 10 or more carts to put those identifiers on their name, a contact number to call them back to retrieve that. So that is a requirement. Thank you.
What is it? How is that required? Is it just a plastic placard that'll be broken off?
Correct. We really leave it open for them to choose if they want it on the side of the cart, or if you open that seat, sometimes you see that placard.
Your first answer was correct. Yes, it
Yes.
will be broken off. Thank you.
Yes.
So if we look at it, where we have a lot of difficulty, obviously, is with our homeless population. They use that as their moving van from one place to the other. So when the sheriffs or LACATA, hook up with them and they, decide to take them, to jail or move them from one location to the next, what is our law enforcement people in LACATA and people like that supposed to do with that shopping cart? Are they going to move it to the city yard and then contact the company that owns it from the city yard, or what are they're not just going to abandon it right on the corner?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think it's on a case-by-case basis, but if, for example, our staff reaches out and that person accepts services, yes, that cart would be impounded and then attempted to be returned back to that business. It gets a little fuzzy when it comes to them putting in, their personal items and belongings. We can't just take the cart away and then take their personal belongings with them. So it is a quality of life issue. I may ask our attorney or Brad for assistance on what would be the case going forward if that person were to reject services and wants to continue going along their merry way, what that would happen with that cart going forward.
In terms of this shopping cart ordinance, this would essentially be another tool in addition to what's already available under state law. I don't know that it would fundamentally change what's happening with the shopping carts now, but it would be another enforcement tool that the city could use as a possibility.
Well, so I'm homeless and I filled up my shopping cart with all my personal belongings and I'm rolling down the street knowing that that's not my shopping cart. Okay, it doesn't belong to me. It's obviously, I doubt that Target or anyone's going to give them a shopping cart to go down the street, so it's either stolen or, or whatever. At this point, how do we address it other than the homeless guy just rolling down the street?
Well, Mayor, and I think that's exactly the point I was trying to raise, that, the majority of time in my experience that you find these shopping carts, all these plastic markings are all broken off, so you can't prove ownership.
Yeah.
Which is why unless you etch it, we can't actually say that's stolen from this person, we have an identifiable victim. And I think that that's where, while I appreciate the markings and the thought of that, that's not solving the issue when they de-identify it to the point that it's just a generic shopping cart stripped of all ownership markings because it was on a placard or because it was on something that they could just deface, and now you have to figure that out. Whereas if we required it to be etched in a very clear place and it was serialized, nobody's going to file that off. I mean, none of them will even think about it, I imagine. It would probably just be the businesses that knew about it and us through the education. And then you have a victim that the sheriff's department can actually follow up with, and we actually have somebody that owns that cart.
I think there's an interesting point to what you're raising, but I think the back end of that also looks like you'd have to have a store that would be willing to prosecute that person for possession of their cart or for defacing it and removing their markings. And if I'm looking at it pragmatically, I don't know that Target or Lowe's or somebody like that would be really interested in doing that.
Yeah, they very, very seldom even prosecute when they get someone stealing stuff from their store, inside their store.
Right, but you have a proposition on the ballot right now that may change that. And you have you have retail theft crime task force that are all about this right now. I mean, it's a big issue. These companies are losing lots of money over stuff like this. And these shopping carts, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but they're at least $3,000 or $4,000 a pop from what I remember. So not a cheap asset.
Can you remind me, so if there's an unidentified cart that's left and it's been 4 days and it's going on, what happens to that cart?
So with this ordinance, it makes it really clear for our staff. If there is an unidentified cart, they have the ability to dispose of it right away. Right now, they are holding it for, several days, trying to identify who it belongs to, and then after a week, they dispose of it. But this ordinance makes it really, really clear. If there's an unidentified cart, they can dispose of it immediately. Now, with that said, if it's very clear that it's a Target cart, they're not just going to throw it out because it didn't have the perfect San Dimas phone number or it got taken away. This is really for those carts that have been taken apart for the purpose of being utilized, not for their intended purpose.
And now, if there is a store, a company, and they're just sensing that they're losing tons of carts, they're losing tons of money, it would really be the responsibility of them to maybe step up their markings and say, hey, we're losing a lot, let's go ahead and etch it. Maybe it's not something that we need to require, but something that we can encourage should there be someone with that major issue.
Did you consult any of these businesses on this ordinance?
We reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and asked for their feedback. And then in turn, they reached out to their base to see if there were any comments back. No issues were raised.
I have a similar question. When you're looking at the terms of this ordinance, did you look at any specific other cities that had something similar, or was it just the Chamber of Commerce?
No, I definitely researched other cities, and a lot of this language was taken in my research of looking at neighboring cities and all around California. I would say with our ordinance, most ordinances that I saw required any business or retailer that had a shopping cart to be in compliance with this ordinance. Second most common thing I saw was 5 or more. So we pushed it out to 10 or more to try to really not affect our small business community.
And so can you list off a few of the cities that you would say that this ordinance looks most similar to?
I would say, a good portion of this ordinance is from Citrus Heights. We found their ordinance to be very flexible, but we also pulled elements from, I believe, Azusa, Pomona, and Glendora.
Thank you.
Did none of the 14 businesses then that would be impacted were specifically directly contacted?
Correct.
Were they noticed about the public hearing directly?
Not directly, no.
All right. So my feeling on this would be to continue the public hearing. My personal preference, one, for staff to consult with the sheriff's department as it relates to the ability to conduct any enforcement proactively and on the investigative side related to the registration and markings and ownership. And the second part of that is to allow some participation from the businesses that are going to be directly impacted from this plan. Perhaps they have other localities that they have ordinances that they have found to be successful. Some of them are corporate organizations, as you've shared. And see if they lend any feedback to what's being proposed here, and then bring that back for consideration. Because one is Councilmember Nakano likes to talk about is, there is a lot of different ways of doing things, and these are large corporations that I think are trying to probably abate this issue, not just in San Dimas. But the other part of this is that there's probably some best practices out there that may be worth considering. But that would be my preference regarding this. I am very much concerned on the investigative prosecution side of this on the back end. And if we see it once, I'd like to just see it and get it right and move on with life. That's my preference.
Okay.
Would you mind if I add something really quick, Mayor? I see this ordinance as the city's responsibility is to keep our streets safe, to keep our environments safe and clean. And I think this does address that. I don't know if it's our responsibility to protect the shopping carts for the companies, for the businesses. I think we're reaching out, we want to work together. I don't know if it's the city's responsibility to take this another step, or if it's the company's responsibilities to protect their carts. It's my priority, again, it's about safety and keeping everything clean. So I'm comfortable with this right now. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I'm comfortable with this ordinance right now.
All right. Any further?
I don't have an issue with putting this off or continuing it and getting any direct input from the stores that are affected. If I'm being frank, I don't necessarily share the burning desire to go etch all of these carts. But I do agree, at least fundamentally, that they should be noticed directly and have a chance to provide input. Or, like you said, there may be a best practice that we're just missing out on, and that they have in their back pocket. They could say, hey, you know what, actually, the city can, work together with us and take care of the problem best with this particular approach. And I'm always willing to hear that.
I'm comfortable with the ordinance as written.
I truly am comfortable with the way it's written, but I also understand and appreciate the reaching out. I think these companies have been around long enough to know that they're missing shopping carts, and every time you turn around, there is a problem. But I see no reason why we couldn't. We only got 14 of these businesses, right? It shouldn't be that difficult to reach out and advise them we're going to continue it. and give them a date definitive that we're going to have this meeting. It seems to me that their security at most of these large locations anymore is best at lacking because they don't want to become involved. They're worried about lawsuits and they're worried about everything in the world except what our community looks like or the people that go to these shopping places or to register it. But this might be a signal to them that we are taking that next step serious. So I would have no problem continuing it to a date definitive, and which would mean you're going to be a little bit restricted in time, but I'm okay with continuing it.
Yeah, I would just say that I agree with pretty much everybody's comments here. I would just only add that we also have a responsibility to look out for the local economy. And if 14 businesses are losing shopping carts and we fail to enact them and engage them in a process that could cause them loss, then we're doing nothing but hurting ourselves and our ability to provide a tax base and a local economy that helps benefit all services in this community. And so I do agree with everything everyone said, but I also think that these businesses may seem like corporate businesses. CVS is no longer there. There are other corporations that have left this city for a lot of different reasons and leaving cities from all over California. So I appreciate looking out for our smaller mom and pop businesses, but I also think that these people are stakeholders in the community too, and just as we've sought engagement from the smaller, I just think they should have a shot. With that being said, I would move that we continue this public hearing and direct staff to engage the 14 businesses specified, as well as consult with the Sheriff's Department regarding this matter, and bring this back for public hearing at the next soonest available date.
And before there's a second on that motion, potentially, I'd just like to remind
Public hearing?
if there's been any public comment before there's any.
Yeah, if we should open up the public hearing and then close it if no one's there, but can we reopen it at the next time?
Yeah, it can be, if we're going to continue the ordinance to a date certain, the public hearing will be reopened and continued to that
But
date
I think it's difficult to set a date certain because I think staff needs to have some kind of time, but we want to make it as soon as possible. We don't want to ask about it 6 months from now.
I'll withdraw the motion so you can open the public hearing, then I'll restate the motion.
Okay. All right. We'll open the public hearing on the shopping cart ordinance. Anyone wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we continue the public hearing to the next soonest available date, that staff is able to bring back the direction, which is for them to reach out to the 14 specified businesses regarding their input related to the public hearing, as well as notice them on the next public hearing concerning this item for their attendance if they wish, as well as consult the Sheriff's Department regarding this matter.
I'd second that.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 3-2. We'll move on. But I would ask staff to, the next date as soon as possible, not
Yeah, Mayor,
6 months
City
from now.
Council, yeah, I understand that. It is going to take time to reach out to 14 different businesses and work with the Sheriff's Department on any ideas and solutions they have. So we'll work hard, try our hardest to get it back as soon as possible.
Super, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to oral communications. Members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes or as may be determined by the chair. Anyone wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the oral communications. City manager?
No report tonight.
City attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. No city attorney report tonight.
Okay. Members of the council, council members reporting on meetings attended at the expense of the local agency pursuant to AB 1234, GC 53232.3D.
Mr. Mayor, I attended the League California Cities Conference in Long Beach, California. It was very educational. I'll comment about it more in my update.
Rachel?
I also attended the League of California Cities Conference, learned a lot, was able to network with a lot of other local leaders, and I also attended a meeting in regards to the Gold Line. We do have our station dedication scheduled for May 31st. More details to follow.
Eric McConnell?
Mr. Mayor, I also attended League of California Cities as well as JPIA, their educational forum, in Palm Desert or close to it. I can't remember if it's in Palm Desert or one of the other neighboring cities, but around there.
Thank you. Eric Weber?
I also attended League of California Cities with the rest of the council, but that was the only one I went to.
I, too, attended the League of California Cities with my partners and the city manager and the assistant city manager and the interim city attorney. So we were all there, and there's so many classes, it's hard to pick one that educational because there's so much information. So the reality is, I'll let anyone going to speak to that during their public conversations. Mr. Nakano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comment other than happy Halloween and wishing everybody have a safe and fun Halloween. I attended the event here at City Hall. It was wanted to just pay tribute to staff for their organizational effort. It was my first time attending, and I was blown away by how well it was organized and how exciting it was for all the residents. So well done. That along with the marketing that went along with it. So as a marketer, I pay tribute to that. Really, really well done again to your team, Scott, as well as others who were involved. Thank you.
Mr. Weber.
Happy Halloween, everybody. It didn't even occur to me that that was coming up so quickly, but this month has flown by. I don't know what in the world is going on, but holy cow. Also, I wanted to mention that the whole council, when we came back from the League of California Cities, and the city manager participated in the homecoming parade that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And it was a great event. We broke out, if anybody noticed, a 1945 Ford tractor to get the council towed through the parade route on a flatbed trailer on hay bales, which honestly I had a lot of fun on. So I hope we break that thing out and use that in more parades. But it was a great event, and I just wanted to mention that since it was a topic of interest a couple of weeks ago.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. I had the opportunity on the 11th to attend my great honor of the Mosquito and Vector Control District. And I will tell you guys that there is a dengue outbreak, or not an outbreak, but rather several cases in Baldwin Park and in El Monte. And I will tell you, I have learned more about public health area search warrants than I ever knew at the last meeting, but that's a thing. And they are, in fact, public health working with our mosquito and vector control district are doing a lot of research into what's going on related to those cases. And I will tell you, tip toss Thursdays, remember you tip all of your standing water and really watch yourselves because it is a real issue and people are getting sick. I, too, attended the League of California Cities Conference, as previously stated, and, you know, there was a lot of interesting discussions. One of the sessions that I dragged the mayor with me to was cybersecurity, and he was thrilled to attend that with me. And the bottom line is, it was a really fascinating discussion. You know, since being on council and working with the past council, you know, prioritizing investments in technology here has been a priority. I think John's done a lot with that, John Lee, and I do appreciate that. I think that is something that I will be seeking to further discuss and look at addressing some issues in the next budget cycle as a priority. But I do think that cybersecurity is important, and I hope that everybody take some time during, I think it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I do hope everybody takes some time to actually look into all of those things that you can do to protect yourselves, especially from cyber scams. And that was something that was discussed, and I do have concerns as it relates to some things that were presented to ensure that we don't have people spoofing our city staff or contacting residents to victimize them, whether it would be paying code enforcement fines or anything like that. So there's some policy issues that I'd like to discuss in the future that I'll bring up after I've cooked the chicken a little more, if you will. But I thought that was really interesting. The other thing is e-bikes, and I think e-bikes is a discussion topic that we're probably going to have in the near future. That is a continuing, evolving problem. I think it pains me to say that the city of Irvine is doing some pretty cool stuff with that, but Councilmember Weber's colleagues put on a very good presentation on e-bikes and what they're doing with e-bikes in the realm of administrative citations, also working with the law enforcement agency to provide education in partnership with the school district. So I think there's some really good opportunities there to be able to do some pretty innovative things here in the city, working with our sheriff's department so that we can tackle that before it becomes a much bigger problem. And we do have e-bike vendors here in our community. So I look forward to bringing that up in the not too distant future. The San Dimas Homecoming Parade, I think, was pretty cool. It's always good to see everybody come together for that. I applaud all the staff that put that together. That went off really well. And the Halloween Spooktacular. I saw Scott when I showed up, and Jay and everybody. And I got here 10 till 5:30, and there already was lines. It was insane. And you know, I do appreciate staff. You know, I was most curious, you know, having gone now for several years and watching the evolution of this. I was most curious to see how we were going to deal with the line that went all the way to the neighbors last year. And you guys tackled that, I think, pretty well this year. And I think using the senior center, incorporating that into this, I think was really good. I saw Margie, the chamber folks, Historical Society, everybody was out there participating, Little League. I do also applaud staff. I had never seen an inflatable maze before like that. And that, to me, I may use that in my place of work in the near future for a Halloween event, because I think that's a brilliant resource to have brought to the table that I think demonstrates some creativity and flexibility in your guys' thinking to do something different. And I applaud you for that and the time, you know, that I think there probably was a savings there in terms of time and setup to a certain degree, but still getting that same outcome, which I think was amazing. So good job. If I could nominate you for the Helen Putnam Award at the league for that, I will, and I'll look into that. But I do think that was a really good use of time and resources. You know, and lastly, you know, the Red Ribbon Week acknowledgement, I think, is awesome. Halloween's coming up, and, you know, I want to encourage everybody to have a safe Halloween and be mindful. But what else is also coming up is Election Day. And so I hope everybody does their homework and really does research the propositions that are on the ballot, take some time to research the politicians that are on the ballot, and really make informed decisions on however you choose to vote. Just make sure you do your homework and vote your conscience and vote your mind and your heart. Do what you believe is right. But as they say, you know, if you don't vote, you don't count, so to speak, in that realm. So please participate, register to vote, or come to see the city clerk's office. I know has a lot of literature floating around, or you can visit lavote.gov, and that should be able to get you lined up. So with that, thank you, Mayor. And
Hi, everyone. I wanted to raise to everyone's attention, especially Councilmember Viana, we have our Lone Hill 8th grade science classes are working together with Mosquito Vector. It's very cool. They've been collecting data and analyzing it. They get to work with real scientists. I'm very proud to say that step one was for my son to bring in whatever standing water was in the yard, and we didn't have any. Step two was to leave some out and then see what happens. But it's really interesting. So it might be kind of cool to get some of those kids in here to help with your mosquito vector report someday. Also, the homecoming parade, I wanted to thank the council, thank the mayor for recognizing the importance of it, having some fun with it. I think it was a great event. In regards to the homecoming parade and the spooktacular, these are things that I just truly want to thank city staff. It takes all the departments to come together to make those things happen. And they are things that people remember for a really long time. You did an excellent job. And that's all I got.
Super.
Mayor, can I mention one more thing?
Sure.
I forgot. It turns out that I also attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the Taylor House Habitat for Humanity project. Councilmember Rotagos was also there with me for that one. It was an exciting event in that it was kind of the culmination of a lot of work that has happened up until this point. And I mean, really, we're standing on a dirt lot that one day, hopefully sooner rather than later, will be the home of a disabled or disadvantaged veteran family. So it is a great opportunity. One of the things that they wanted to highlight is that they continually look for properties to work with. So if any other properties that the city can work with Habitat for Humanity on, they are more than willing to, or if any surrounding communities have properties that Habitat Humanity could work on, they're all ears. It is a great organization. It sounds like this project will be really fun, particularly because I got a hard hat for free. And that means that I'm going to put it on with a tool belt and come down and help them build that house. They're also looking for volunteers for it. So it really is an exciting opportunity to put something really cool back into our city and end up with something that's a lot prettier than just a dirt lot that has weeds on it. So it was noteworthy, and I just wanted to mention that, and I forgot to, so I appreciate that, Mayor.
You're absolutely right. That Habitat for Humanity giving up that property at the corner of First and Monte Vista is something that we'll cherish long term. We'll see it. A family will go in there. We hope a disabled veteran, but you know that's not for us to do the choosing. But we did request that. But that's good. Up until Councilman Weber just spoke, I was going to entertain a motion that from now on we'll just let Councilman Vienna do the report, and he can say everything for everybody, and it'll save us some time. Thank you. But the reality is we did have all of these events. I can't say enough about how surprised I was when I made the corner coming up to City Hall last Saturday night. That was just unbelievable. The lines went all the way around the block, And then if you've been to Disneyland any time in the last 100 years, you know that they had all these lines that going up and down and up and down and up and down. The reality is we went all the way around the block, and it wasn't just 1, 2, 3. It was like groups of people all the way. So, family asked me how many people I estimated, and I'm not a great estimator, but I said there's got to be 3,000 people there. It was just unbelievable. And then when I got into the grounds and saw all the lines going up and down, it was great. So my my compliments to the staff and everybody else that was out there. And, the sheriffs were out there in the amount of people sufficient to handle the job. And to my knowledge, there was absolutely no problems whatsoever. And I think that's a compliment to not only the community, but to the staff, the way they managed it, and the sheriff's department and everyone else. Homecoming parade gets better and better every year. This year, they kind of threw a hiccup into it. They reversed it. Okay, if you're used to going A, B, C, we had to go C, B, A, and so that was good. But they did. They put us on a hay bale, and so I thought we were going to, start singing and stuff like that. But the reality is, it was pretty neat. We had a tractor that I didn't even know we owned, and so that turned out very nice. And there were lots and lots of people who were out there. to show support for our kids. And it's not just our high school homecoming people. It was the junior high school as well as all our elementary schools, and they're all represented, and it's really a good feat. Then it had been culminated at the end of the night with a homecoming parade, or homecoming game, that whereas San Dimas won like 63 to 33 or 64 to 33 over Baldwin Park. It was pretty much of a steamrolling game, but kids on both sides played their hearts out. So that was good to see. But one thing I just wanted to recognize is earlier in the evening when I first arrived there, we had a conversation with the what is she? She's the dean, or not the dean? Lisa, what's her job? Oh, the ASB director, who informed me that they were going to recognize one of our own, Rachel Batakas, who graduated from San Dimas High School. She was a princess, a singer, and everything else. They recognized her as being the first student from San Dimas to become a active sitting council person. So very good. Thank you very
You
much.
really caught me off guard. I had no idea, but it was really, really kind. Thank you.
Yeah, they wanted her to stand up, and she wasn't even sure what she was supposed to do. But, you know, congratulations. You made those kids proud. Thank you. And with that, we're going to move on to a closed session. Mr. City Attorney, you want to speak to that matter?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will now convene to closed session to discuss one closed session item. It's a successor agency and City Council conference with real property negotiators concerning the property at 121 North San Dimas Avenue. Under negotiation are price and terms of payment at that listed property. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.